I was serving on our a church committee where we plan the worship services every Sunday. And I loved serving on this committee. It was where I could use my degree in music and where I could really use the artsy side of me and the leader side of me. The only problem was this particular church committee met at 6 a.m. on Tuesday mornings. Now, I am not a morning person. Not at all. My idea of the perfect day is you wake up about noon and you go to bed way past midnight. So this was a big struggle for me. So almost every single morning I would get up just a little bit too late. And I would come to that meeting just a little bit too late. And finally our worship pastor kind of put his foot down and said, guys, we need to start this on time. We need to start this meeting on time. People have to get to work. We really need to be prompt. And I really felt sorry for everybody else sitting in the room because I knew he was talking to me. So I decided, okay, I've got to do better. I've got to do better. So the very next Tuesday, I was like, okay, I cannot, hit the snooze alarm too many times. I have got to be very, very intentional. And, I rolled over too many times and all of a sudden realized, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be late. So I jumped out of bed, I threw on my clothes, I grabbed my notebook, I grabbed my car keys, I got in the car, I drove across town. Just a little bit too fast. And it was just as I was pulling in the church parking lot when I noticed the flashing red lights in my rearview mirror. Quite a humbling place for one of the pastor's wives to be pulled over. So I rolled down the window, and the police officer came up and said, ma'am, could I please see your driver's license? And I said, yes, sir, and I went to grab my purse. It's when I realized I didn't have my purse. It was still sitting on the kitchen counter. So I sheepishly turned to the police officer, and I said, sir, I am so sorry. I do not have my purse with me. I do have a driver's license. I don't have it in my possession right now. I am so sorry. Said, is there any way I could bring it to you later? He didn't have much sense of humor. So he said, ma'am, could I just see your registration papers, your insurance papers? I said, yes, absolutely, sir. And I began to look for them. Now, before I tell you what happened next, I must tell you, I was not driving my car. I was driving my mother's car. My vehicle had been in an accident while we were in Indianapolis, Indiana, where my parents live. We live in Bloomington, Illinois, and so we needed a car to get back. And so we left our wrecked car in Indianapolis, Indiana, and we drove her car home. So I began to look around where any logical person might put their registration papers and their insurance papers. I looked above the visor. I looked in the glove compartment. I looked underneath the seats. It was nowhere. I finally turned back to the nice police officer and I said, sir, I am quite sure that there are papers in this car. I just don't know where they are because you see, this isn't my car. And then I thought about that, so I quickly said, it's my mother's car and I'm allowed to drive it. But I don't know where they are. So at this point, I'm just sitting there waiting for whatever punishment is going to come my way. Because quite frankly, I deserved whatever was going to come my way. I had been speeding. I cannot produce my license. I cannot produce my insurance papers and my registration. I am bracing myself. I'm ready to get out of the car and just do this, Okay, just lock me up because I deserve it. So he stood there for the longest time, and I could see him looking off in the distance, just like the wheels turning in his head, and like, what am I going to do with this woman, Finally, he looked down at me and he said, you know what, lady? It's just not worth it. He got in his car and he drove away.